Hey guys, welcome back to Well and Worthy Life podcast. I'm so excited you're here. And I have a returning guest, Sandy Kruse. So let me tell you a little bit about Sandy. Sandy is the host and creator of the popular Sandy K Nutrition, Health, and Lifestyle Queen podcast. Now over 1.2 million downloads. Congratulations. That's awesome. She is also a registered holistic nutritionist, a certified metabolic balance coach. I know I didn't say that right. Metabolic balance coach, a biohacker, an aging well advocate at 54 years of age. And if you're just listening to this, you're not seeing Sandy, but she does not even come close to looking like 54. She holds a bachelor's degree in English literature and at 49 graduated with a diploma in holistic nutrition from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. Yes, Sandy lives in Canada. Sandy educates on alternative means for healing, wellness, and preventative care and shares them with the world through her podcast and social media presence. She believes all humans need a little of everything to be aligned in body, mind, and soul. Post-thyroidectomy due to thyroid cancer at 41. Thyroid cancer, y'all. After many years of trying almost every style of eating, Sandy asserts that balance, love that, is the key to living well, enjoying life, and living life well into those golden years, both happy and healthy. Sandy is currently working on her first book. Congrats. That's so exciting, which speaks to balance in life by looking at all aspects of wellness to incorporate a little bit of science and a lot of soul. And she'll be releasing the Essential Thyroid Guide in spring 2024 to help those who have thyroid dysfunction. Sandy, wow, wow, wow. You've just got so much. And I love reading all that. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Did you see I'm wearing my American flag
I
just for you,
love
Deanna?
that.
I
Oh
know.
my
I'm like,
gosh.
I'm gonna wear this because I'm
That's
recording with
so
Deanna.
cute. Oh, that's so cute. And warm because it's cold in Canada right
It
now,
is cold.
right?
Yes, it is. It's very
Oh
cold.
my gosh. Wow. Well, I love following along with you, and you are so far ahead of me. And I love hearing what you're doing and what you're learning. And sometimes it's hard for me to even follow what all because you've taken it a big step further than what I take it. I'm more of a lifestyle. I can recommend certain things, but really, I don't know. I'm not a big science person. I don't understand the science, and it just honestly is not a big interest to me. I look to people like you to tell me what I should be doing. So today we're going to talk about supplements. And I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you do too.
All the
What
time.
supplements do you take? What supplements do you take? And I always preface it by saying, look, this is what's been recommended to me after testing. We're all different. So we all need different things. But so tell me, well, first of all, let's talk about before we even do supplements, where should we focus on, especially at this age, right?
Yeah. I do find it so interesting because I like to watch what are people interested in? What are they asking about? What are they liking? And we see a lot of this in social media. And you see a lot of women around our age where they're almost grasping at straws. Like they're just like, oh, well, Deanna said to take omega 3. So tomorrow I'm going to go and get myself some omega 3. Oh, well, now, they're saying I got to take magnesium. I'm going to take some magnesium. And then you go and you buy magnesium citrate or citrate, however you want to spell it. And then you've got diarrhea. And then you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is the thing. And yet, a lot of these people don't even have the basics down.
Mhm,
And by
mhm,
basics, I'm talking about how's your sleep?
mhm,
How are your relationships in your life? how are you mitigating the effects of stress on you? Are you meditating?
Mhm.
Like what resonates? And we're all different in
Mhm.
terms of what resonates. But if you don't have your diet, and I'm not going to say a specific diet because we're all bio individual, but you
Yes.
need to eat whole real foods. And so I'm seeing all these people, and I'm actually noticing this a little less now, where everyone's like, cut out gluten. Gluten's this.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like, you know, I did that for a time,
Mhm.
Deanna. And you and I have been in this. I haven't been practicing as a holistic nutritionist or podcast for more than 4 years. Well, about 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
But even before that, I tried every diet under the sun by
Yeah.
listening to all these experts.
Mhm.
So I say eat whole real foods,
Yeah.
dial in on your sleep, make sure that you're moving. And by moving, this is, I'm sure you see this,
Mhm.
is women who are menopausal and they're just killing themselves at the gym. And
Mhm.
then what they don't, they'll go after work and they'll be like, I got to get my workout in. And they'll be like 7 o'clock at night doing major cardio and then they can't sleep. And so, really,
Mhm.
I say before you look at any supplements, get the basics down.
Mhm.
Your food, make sure you're cooking at home. I'm not even
Mhm.
tell you what to cook, but cook at home and move
Mhm.
your body. How are you going to move your body? So I just got a rebounder for Christmas.
Oh, lucky you. I actually have one and I don't use it near enough. I need
Okay.
to get it out more. I love
You know
that.
what? I put it in my garage because, as you know, here in Toronto right now in January,
It's
it's freezing
cold.
cold. So, what I do, Deanna, because I'm sitting a
Mhm.
lot, I get up and I go and I do 100 bounces,
Oh, what a
right?
great
100
idea.
bounces.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and I'll sit down because I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of the studies are saying now that multiple little bouts of movement are
Mhm.
better than going for a 40-minute jog.
Mhm.
So I would love for everyone to just focus on food, food as medicine,
Mhm.
sleep, stress, movement first.
Yeah. That's exactly what we talk about in my Revive Now membership. So we have modules and it starts with mindset, then we move to nourishment, then we move to hormone health, and then movement, and then stress management, because all those things impact us so much. And we're always trying to look for this magic pill.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
tell you, we're looking for the magic pill to make it all better, but I say this all the time, and I think this is why I believe that it really all starts with our mindset, because we have to lose that quick fix mentality, right? We have to realize that it's a journey, that it's not just this destination. So I
Yeah.
love that, Sandy.
Yeah, and
Um,
we're always learning. I mean,
mhm,
and I say to really, really busy people, there still are some little, you know, quick, I'm going to say it's more of a fast track. So let's say you have trouble meditating. I'm one of those
mhm,
people. Like, I don't
mhm,
know about you,
mhm.
but my
Oh, yeah.
brain kind of goes all over. So I actually use shortcuts to get my brain into a state where I am releasing, or let's just say mitigating the effects of stress on me and my body. So you've probably heard me talk about Newcom and BioStrap all
Mhm,
the time.
mhm.
Not BioStrap, sorry, Newcom and Brain Tap. Brain Tap.
Okay.
These two, I love how like they'll call it the remote control for the brain, because I don't know about you, but a
Mhm,
lot of times when I am through the day, I might not lose energy, but I lose focus.
mhm.
And so I need to kind of rejig and get back into that mindset where I feel like I can focus again.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So I just got something. Have you heard of this? It's called the Muse, or Muse.
I actually I
Muse.
am an old Muse. I
Oh,
used Muse about
really?
10 years ago.
Okay, so tell me about it, because I just got it and I've only done it one time. So
Okay.
tell.
So, and don't I can't speak to the newest one,
Uh-huh.
because the one that I had before What it does is it actually measures if you're in a meditative state.
Right.
So, and it has like little birds on
Yes.
an app, and it tells you how many birds you got. So it measures alpha, theta, I'm not sure what other brain
Mhm.
waves, but theta is the place where your body does the healing, and it's very hard to stay there. So,
Mhm.
you've got
Mhm.
monks who
Mhm.
probably
Yeah.
practice their lifetime, and maybe they could do it, but I'm far from a
Uh-huh.
monk. So
Yeah.
so, what Muse is great for is if you want to know if
Mm.
if you're in that state or not.
Mhm.
And the reason I stopped using it, I can't, like I said, I can't speak to their newer ones
Mhm.
because they have a new model from what I had. Mine is probably close to 10 years old now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started using a long time ago.
I just
So,
heard about it. I heard about it through Dr. Mindy Pels.
okay.
She talked
Yep.
about it on her podcast. So
Yes. So I would prefer to use a modality that I know is
mhm.
getting me there. Quite frankly, I don't care how many birds I get. I,
Yeah,
I just want to
exactly.
get
Yeah.
there. Just get
Right.
me there. So
Right. And
this
so
is that
new calm and tapping does that. It gets you there.
brain tap
Brain
gets you.
tap.
Yeah.
Brain tap.
So
Okay.
the way that I would describe the two is new calm gives you fewer, I would say, fewer options. So let's say you need to focus. You
Mhm.
can play the option for focus. It's using neuroscience and binaural beats. You put in headphones. Then there's ways, let's say you had a really bad night's sleep
Mhm.
and you need to function, you would do a new calm session. Like I think it's called
Ah.
Restore. And they also have these little discs that go on your left pericardium 6 pressure point for
Mhm.
stress.
Mhm.
These discs help, it's like acupuncture. They help you to get to that meditative state faster
Oh,
or
wow.
whatever state. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Brain Tap uses sound and lights and vibration because the lights actually can affect the mitochondria
Mm.
in your brain.
Mhm.
It's amazing. But you've got over 1,800 different programs you could choose from. So, for
Wow.
example, if I want to, let's say I had a dispute with someone and I was all worked up and upset about it, and I need to release that energy from me, from my body, I would
Mhm.
maybe choose a session that would be like, raise my vibration or something like that. You put the
Oh.
headset on and it helps your body to do that. And I'm going to tell you 99% of the time, I get out of one of these sessions and I feel better.
Oh.
Remote control for the brain, my dear.
I
It's
see.
amazing.
I love that because I think that that's one of the things I hear from my clients. I'm sure you hear this too, is that, okay, well, I know meditation helps, but I can't meditate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look, now there are things that can help you get in that state because I don't know. We were talking about this on our Revive call the other day. I'm not sure if we have more stress when we get older or if we have a harder time handling that. What are your thoughts on that? What do you
Oh,
think?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I
Yeah.
think it's multifactorial, let's just say. I, you know, back in the day, my parents are Eastern European, old school farmers. My dad's almost 87, my mom is 77, and they lived in a day where they grew their own food,
Mhm.
where they went to bed and followed the circadian rhythms because that's how life was. They moved their body all day. They worked on the farm. We
Mhm.
don't live like that. And sure, you hear of some people who are able to buy land and live that way and live off the grid. They don't have their iPhone glued to their hands. Um, Right? They don't have a
Right.
ring light in their face like we do right now.
Mhm.
So there's that factor. We can't possibly live like that. So all of these contribute to our stress bucket,
Mhm.
whether you realize it or not.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, what happens around our age is our resiliency just goes down. We have lower hormones. So for some women who choose not to go on hormone therapy or bioidentical hormones, which is what I'm on,
Mhm.
um, sometimes they have really low progesterone, which actually causes anxiety, sleep issues. And I think you've recorded about women's hormones
Mhm.
before, and so
Mhm.
have I. And so hormones play a big part in our ability to cope with stress. And
Mhm.
then there's people who just lead stressful lives and do it to themselves. And they don't
Yeah.
know when to say no. They don't know. There's so many
I
factors.
agree. I think that's the thing. I mean, I think that too, we grew up in this generation that we just had to do it all, right? And that made us feel better, I think. I know for me, I was like, well, if I'm needed that much, then that's great. But if we don't take care of ourselves and we don't manage that stress, it's going to show up. And for me, I realized that more than ever when my mother passed away and my stepfather was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia.
Mm,
And the stress I was under because I didn't even understand, I didn't know what to do. And it was only me being his caregiver, making decisions where he was going to live and who was taking care of him. And I wanted to make sure I was doing everything possible. I remember feeling like I was out in the ocean just treading water and the
mm.
stress. And I look back at pictures, Sandy, during that time, my body was inflamed
Yeah.
from the stress. I'm
Yeah.
sure my cortisol levels were high. It was a tough time. And
And
so
we
we,
all go through that, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And then you can't be stressed about being stressed because that just makes it worse.
That's not gonna, yeah.
So,
And then, the one thing I always say, the majority of us live somewhere where you can find some green, or in my case, white because of the snow. But I'm talking about, it's like, take that short little walk.
Yes,
If you
get
you
out
have
in
a dog,
nature.
you have a dog, right?
I've got 2 dogs, they're right
Got
here.
2.
I cannot walk these dogs, though. These dogs do not walk.
That
I
was
need
like my
another dog that I can walk.
See, that was like my Shih Tzu, but she passed away. She
Mm,
was not a walker, but
yeah.
the one I have now is a walker. So it is so, and I always say, take out your
Mhm,
headphones,
mhm.
just
I
completely
agree.
unplug. Don't listen to music. Don't don't listen to my podcast or Deanna's podcast. Just unplug and
Mhm,
actually notice and visualize, see the signs, notice the birds. Like, you would be
mhm,
amazed at how that in and of itself is going to lower that cortisol and help with the stress, cuz if you do nothing, which is what I did. When my daughter was sick, I did nothing. And
mhm,
exactly 1 year later, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I'm not
mhm,
saying that I didn't have thyroid issues before,
mhm,
but what precipitated
mhm,
one of the 5 nodules in my neck just to turn cancerous? Was it
mhm,
the lack of nourishment because I was so stressed out, I wasn't eating properly, I wasn't sleeping properly, I felt like it felt like a bowling ball in my gut all the time. And back then, I didn't have it. I wasn't a practitioner. I didn't know how to care for myself. I didn't know, well, if you have trouble and you're waking up early because it comes to your mind, go to bed earlier. Like, there's
mhm.
so many things that
Right.
you can do, right?
Mhm,
I didn't know back then. And I was sick then.
mhm.
So I think stress is huge, Deanna.
I agree. So tell us a little bit. I know we want to get into the supplements, but I want everybody to understand about the thyroid and about thyroid cancer because that is, I don't know if I'm sure you've heard this too, this new weight loss drug. I do hear that it's a side effect or can be a side effect, but talk about the thyroid and what the thyroid's role is.
So the thyroid is the master gland that actually manages your metabolic rate. So, the way I explain it is the thyroid controls if you're hot, if you're cold, if you're angry, if you're happy, if you're depressed, if your skin is dry, if you've got swelling or edema, if you are losing weight, if you're gaining weight. So
Sounds
it,
like perimenopause too, doesn't it?
well,
That's
exactly,
that's
right?
what I was gonna say. Yeah.
So the funny thing is, and the reason I'm doing this guide too, Deanna, is because nobody's ever written that I've found an essential guide for a woman going through Mary menopause. It's not Mary, is it?
It's not Mary.
It's not Mary. Perimenopause or menopause without a thyroid at all. Because the bottom line is people talk so negatively about menopause. It
Mhm,
doesn't have to be that way. If you prep yourself in peri or before that,
mhm,
it doesn't have to be that way. So the thyroid gland is, you go see an endocrinologist and he might be your thyroid doctor and he looks only at your thyroid. But what people don't understand, especially women around menopause, is that your other hormones come into play as well.
mhm,
So the thyroid does not work in a silo.
mhm,
So when your estrogen in perimenopause, you see this probably, Deanna.
mhm,
A lot of times women are estrogen dominant, so they have
mhm,
high estrogen. And then you hit menopause and your estrogen just tanks.
mhm,
Well, your thyroid very much works with that estrogen as well as with that adrenal
mhm,
gland that produces the cortisol. So this is why the thyroid always has to come into play. People don't realize. So I was actually researching this that worldwide about and this is, you have to take it with a grain of salt on what
mhm,
you see on searches in terms of Google or anywhere like that.
mhm,
They're saying about 50% of the world is deficient in iodine. I'm going to
mhm.
probably say even more than that.
Wow.
So, iodine is a crucial nutrient. So is selenium. So
Mhm,
is iron. So is all your minerals
mhm, mhm.
are critically important for thyroid function, but iodine is really important. And I don't know if you know a lot about halogens. This is
No.
fascinating. I learned about this a long time ago. So, if you look at the periodic table,
Mhm,
there's a section of halogens where these minerals look like iodine. So one of them is chlorine.
mhm,
Another one is bromide, bromine. These are all
mhm,
chemicals or minerals
mhm,
that your thyroid actually, it's not a nutrient for the thyroid. But if you're not eating enough iodine rich foods, think of it as a parking spot.
mhm,
They'll take up a parking spot in the receptors for your thyroid and wreak havoc if you're not taking in enough iodine. So at one time, there's actually a protocol that you can do, but I always say do it with a practitioner who understands it. Don't
mhm.
ever, this is not medical advice. And please, anybody who's listening, don't go out and do it. Don't go out and do this. This is just work with somebody who understands it. But there's an iodine loading protocol where you can slowly push out the other halogens, and it's almost like you're loading up your thyroid gland with what it
Wow.
needs, which is iodine, but it's also important in breast health too. And at the time when
Mhm,
I had thyroid disease,
mhm.
I also had a breast tumor and a breast cyst.
Oh my gosh.
So, if you and I still
Mhm,
take iodine, even though I
mhm,
don't have the gland anymore,
mhm.
because it's important for breast health. So, the thyroid I could talk about
Yeah,
forever,
I
Deanna,
know. I
but
know.
it's so important that women really need to pay attention to
Mhm,
the health of their thyroid because there's so much you can do with food as medicine.
mhm. Yeah. So once you got your thyroid out, I mean, how did that affect you?
Oh, well, that would take probably an hour to talk about all of it. But what happened was they initially put me on T3 only. So T3
Mhm,
is the active thyroid hormone.
mhm,
It's about your thyroid produces about 80% of T4.
Mhm.
and 20% of T3. But the T4 must be actually converted to T3 in
Mhm.
order to do stuff, to do everything, the
Mhm.
metabolism, all of anything
Mhm.
relating to metabolism, which is everything in your body.
Right, right.
And I was given T3 initially, which is the active hormone. So initially I was okay. But then they had to do some testing to make sure the cancer was gone. And then they said, okay, well, now we're going to put you on the drug of choice, which is T4 only. T4 only is the inactive hormone.
Mhm.
And what happens if stress is a factor, which it almost always is, your reverse T3 goes up and they're almost like bouncers at
Oh.
the door to the cell. So it doesn't, when your reverse T3 is up high, it doesn't
Mhm.
allow for that conversion of the T4 to the active T3. So a lot of thyroid patients will have such major lingering symptoms. I couldn't get off the couch. And I still
Oh.
remember my kids were younger
Mhm.
then, and I remember them like, in my face, like I'm on the couch and they're like, "Mom, we want to go to the park." And so
Mhm.
I also had infections that just wouldn't heal. You heal
Mhm.
slower. So anyone who's hypothyroid, just understand that the whole body slows all function. All function. Everything slows down.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's pretty serious, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who are in that almost, um, suboptimal state for a very long time.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're not. And
No.
that's why you have learned so much about
Yeah.
all of this and know so much about it. And that's what I love that you've taken that, what you've gone through. And then I'm excited about your essential thyroid guide. I think that's going to be really great. Okay, so let's get to supplements.
Okay.
So when you think of supplements, what do you think of? Like where do you go first when somebody asks you about supplements? What do you
Okay.
recommend?
So, this was the conversation that we had just before this
Hmm.
is actually a beautiful segue to say, stop with all the sexy supplements that you see all these influencers talk about.
Hmm.
If you are working with a personal trainer, more often than not, they are not trained in therapeutic grade supplementation. If you are working with your doctor, more often than not, they are not trained in therapeutic grade supplementation. So, getting advice from the right person at the right stage is important,
Hmm.
really important. I wanted to start with that.
Hmm.
And having said all of these, about nutrients for the
Hmm.
thyroid, I say start with the basics. And it's
Hmm.
not taking a multivitamin, but
Hmm.
actually looking at different options and where you can customize your own needs. So you might be taking a multivitamin that has iron in it, but your iron may be more than optimal and you don't need it. So and I say this all the time, the only people that I think maybe could do with a regular multivitamin would be
Hmm.
teenagers or young adults who
Hmm.
really don't care for their health. And they also don't care to take supplements. Trust me,
Hmm.
I've got
Hmm.
two of those. Um, one is better than the other. Anyway, so you definitely have a place for a multivitamin, but of course, always look to make sure it's a methylated form.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't realize they'll be told, oh, take B12 by their doctor. They go to a regular drugstore, they
Hmm.
take cyanocobalamin, which is a form of B12 that actually has cyanide in it. And if you
I
have
see.
certain genetics, they sell that on the shelf,
Hmm.
like the really cheap vitamins.
Hmm.
So, if you are told that your B12 is low, make sure that you're using adenosylcobalamin, yes, or methylcobalamin. Those are two good forms. So, always work with somebody who gets this, not your family doctor, because they
Hmm.
don't get it.
Right.
So, you know, I say, oh, the other people that might do well with a multivitamin would be elderly, because they
Mm.
can't. maybe focus on too many different supplements. And
Right.
so even if getting that multivitamin in them, when I was in college, Deanna, they said the two groups that were the most deficient in proper nutrients were teenagers and elderly.
Yeah, that makes sense though.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does. So I
Mhm.
say there are two, there are probably other options. The reason I'm
Mhm.
saying these companies is yes, I am affiliated with them because I
Mhm.
recorded with them and I
Mhm.
love what they're doing. So if you don't have, so if you're one of these people who's going out and buying a little of this, little of that, little of this, I challenge you to go and see how much you're spending monthly on all these little supplements that you were
Mhm.
told by some influencer to take.
Right.
Add that up because people who are supplement junkies tend to spend a lot of money.
Mhm.
So there are a couple of options, and this is what we were talking about, how it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting that they're now saying that blood testing for nutrients, it's really not that accurate.
That I find so interesting because I thought that's, I mean, gosh, when I go to this functional medicine doctor, I mean, she runs so many panels on me. I feel like I'm giving blood like crazy. And that's when the blood, and even like my son just went through Inside Tracker where they took a ton of blood from him and said the only thing they said was his vitamin D was low.
Okay, so I'm going to explain this because this doesn't come from me. This comes from people who I have interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I always say, I want everyone to be, to critically look at the data yourself. Look at this yourself. Blood cells, and I'm going to say there's one company that I know of that does intracellular micronutrient testing. So that means how much of these nutrients are in the cells as opposed to floating around in the serum. Think
Mm-hmm.
of blood as a transport, like it takes it
Mm-hmm.
to here,
Right.
or it takes it to your heart, or takes it. So
Mm-hmm.
blood is not necessarily a great method unless it's within the cell to measure nutrients because nutrients are being transported throughout the body constantly to where it's needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting because here we are, and I can't wait till this podcast comes out. So one way that a lot of people can check, and it's a very economical way, is go to myvitaminscore.ca. And what this person has done is taken over 250 peer-reviewed studies and put them into a database whereby you look at symptoms that you're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing and where you may have possible deficiencies. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
really cheap way to do it. So you go and you do that, you put in all your symptoms, and you kind of come up with a score and a graph on some of the major nutrients. The
Mm-hmm.
way that I would personally, I would add in my genetics. So I
Mm-hmm.
know for a fact that I carry 3 genetic SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms for low vitamin D. So I need to make sure. So I like to piece things together, Deanna. So
Mm-hmm.
I look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I look at my genetics. Like, what are my predispositions? It's all about epigenetics. Well, it doesn't mean I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be low in vitamin D. It just means I have a predisposition for it. So that might mean,
Ah, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for something like vitamin D, since we're talking about that, there's an app. It's called D Minder. Have you heard of that? It's free.
No, I love this. Okay.
DMinder is free. You can
Uh-huh.
download this and download the area in which you live, and they can, and I think you even put in like how much time you spend outside, and they can guesstimate your need for vitamin D.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then on top of that, what people don't realize is it's extremely important that you take a little bit of K2. So D3
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
K2. So interesting story. I went to see my endocrinologist. He's a lovely man. I have a great relationship.
Mhm.
And he's like, I want you to lower your vitamin D. And so I kind of ignored, and he goes, go to 3,000 IUs. I kind of ignored him because I look at all my blood work, which is what I expect
Right.
everybody to do. And I go and I see him 3 months later, and he goes, oh, he goes, well, your vitamin D is a little lower. It's January, of course,
Of
in
course.
Toronto. He goes, it's a little bit lower, but it's still not where I want you. I said, whoa, wait a second. Cause I'm actually trained in functional lab testing for nutrition. I go, but I'm optimal. And he said, well, this can affect your bones. And so I said, well, I understand that if vitamin D is not going to the right place in your body, it can cause calcification outside
Mhm.
of your bones. It could cause you to not absorb it in your bones. And I said, but I'm taking K2. And he just, and then there was silence. It was this awkward silence. I said, listen, I respect you very much for who you are. I respect your opinion, but my
I know more than
specialty,
you.
I said, but my specialty is therapeutic grade supplementation. So
Uh,
I'm taking the nutrient to ensure it's getting into the bone. Anyway, I know I'm getting off track,
yeah.
but then, you might even say, well, vitamin D, if you're testing, how reliable is that? You just said that blood testing is not
Mhm.
accurate. This orthomolecular practitioner says it isn't.
Mhm.
But I still think that there are some nutrients that it's important to test. But here's another question. Why is there no ceiling to B12? Why is it just open? Why do they not give you like a really definitive range?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway, I invite everyone to really assess this. And I will say SpectraCell, intracellular blood testing, very expensive, but it
Mhm.
is the most accurate, not the stuff that you get that's just serum floating around. Same thing with minerals. Minerals are typically, blood is just the transport. Minerals
Mhm.
go, they're like, okay, let's go do some work over here in
Mhm.
this tendon and this bone, and let's build where Sandy hurt herself from working out. Let's,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
that's
Exactly.
the minerals
Okay.
job. So for anyone that's listening to this podcast, do whatever you can to figure out what you need. And
And
maybe
so, what would you recommend? Who would they contact? I mean, I think that that's a really good because I think here in Alabama we have a hard time finding doctors that would know much, right? Unless we went to you know, I can't even think of the word right now. See my
Toronto's
oh
like that too.
yeah. Okay. So do they come to somebody like you? Do you do this? I can't remember. I should know this if you do this or
So
not.
the place that I would recommend, because I
Mhm.
don't work that often with clients
One on
one
one.
on one.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
do little consults, so I can
Mhm.
do a consult, like 1 hour consults, but not long term.
Right.
However, what I would recommend, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh my God, she just like completely derailed what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm like questioning if I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
I would say there are certain nutrients that we know most people are deficient in. One is vitamin D, one
Hmm.
is magnesium.
Yeah.
Another one that's a pretty safe bet is taking a probiotic every day.
Hmm.
Um, there are some tasks that I recommend to do to see what is your hydrochloric acid like?
Hmm.
I think I've
Hmm.
talked to you about that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there are some things you can do. I just gave you myvitaminscore.ca.
Okay.
Go on there, do that. Go
Hmm.
check out Bionic, B I
Hmm.
Bioniq, because they do a combination of a few things. They do look at blood work, but they don't
Hmm.
look at, okay, Sandy's B12 in her blood work is exactly this. They have an algorithm where they look at certain trends in your blood work. to assess what
Oh.
possible nutrients are maybe deficient in Sandy's diet in her
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
So they look at that, but you don't have to do the blood work. You don't
Mhm.
have to either.
Mhm.
They also look at symptoms, and then they also look at goals, which I think is
Mm.
the other important piece. So for you and I,
Mhm.
it's longevity and health
Mhm.
span. And
Mhm.
so what they do, and oh my gosh, you'd laugh at this. So this is so cool. They give you a bag and it's granules. And each,
What?
yes, you can put it in your yogurt. You take it once a day.
Oh.
You don't have to worry about nutrients interacting with each other because they all have specific time release. They enter the body as
Mhm.
though food. They go down the villi and they're absorbed when they're meant to be absorbed, just like food. That's their
Oh my
supplement.
gosh.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
been taking
Okay.
them. I've been taking them myself, and so that is still probably gonna be less expensive than somebody who's spending like
Yeah.
could look behind me and see all the stuff like I'm but I'm
Right.
but I'm also a biohacker. I know like what to take. But
I
what I'm
know.
saying is, um, I do think that those are great options to
Mhm.
start. The other thing I do wanna say, and I don't know what you're gonna think of this, Deanna, but I tell everybody now, put away your 2-liter water bottles. I know. See,
What?
she's gonna go,
I
"What?"
know why though, but go ahead. I
You
think I
know
know
why.
why. Uh,
So, everyone's walking around with 2-liter water bottles, and they're not considering that the water that they're drinking may not be highly mineralized water.
mhm.
So, what you're doing is you're actually gonna make yourself more dehydrated by doing that.
Mhm.
And so what I actually recommend is take a regular size glass of water,
Mhm.
take a pinch of really good quality sea salt. I usually recommend Celtic or Redmond,
Mhm.
sublingual under the tongue, like a good pinch. And then I drink my water. And so with every single glass of water that I drink, I'm getting a highly mineralized salt
Mhm.
that's going to ensure that I'm not diluting my cells.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about these electrolytes? Like everybody's talking about LMNT. I love
Yeah.
them. They taste good. So,
You know
and I
what?
add it.
I you know what's interesting? I was looking at
Mhm.
those and the potassium's really high.
Mhm.
And guess what? One of my guests said is the
Right.
one of the biggest minerals that people are deficient in, potassium.
Really?
So I think they're good.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think Element is good. The
Mhm.
problem is they're so expensive.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I reserve Element for when I travel.
Mm.
I make sure that I have them with me when I'm traveling. I make sure that I took one this morning
Mhm.
because I had a meeting just before this and I knew I didn't want to have to pee like and drink, like
Yeah,
get
right.
salt under the tongue and
Right.
like I'll just take my Element
Uh-huh.
and I'll be fine for the whole
Mhm.
morning. So there is a place for it and I think probably nobody's doing it as good as them that I know of,
Mhm. Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the show notes to those because you can order them and try them for yourself. You get if you use my link, like a 6-pack or something like that free too.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, okay. You've got another supplement you take, Reserva. So how do you say?
Resveratrol.
Yes. Tell me about that.
Resveratrol. Again, I like everyone to be their own critical thinker, and I
Mm.
want everyone who listens to this to I don't know about you, but I love the search,
Oh,
duckduckgo.com.
yes, me too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
go to duckduckgo.com just to ensure that what you're searching for isn't filtered through, and look
Mhm.
for the studies on resveratrol. Because there are so many as it relates to longevity and health span.
Mhm.
I mean, there's too many to even talk about. And I think, who is it? David Sinclair, he talks about it as one of his big supplements for longevity. I mean,
Mhm.
you can get it in red wine. I personally hate red wine. Oh my God,
Well,
Deanna.
and I don't know that that's the best way to get it. I mean, I
You know,
think, yeah,
sometimes I think it's counterproductive and counterintuitive.
yeah,
Like you're drinking
exactly.
red wine. Maybe if you drink a little bit of red wine, you're
Yeah.
getting the right amount. But it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant for the body.
Mhm.
And I actually have a very real life story. So if anybody here has done 23andMe,
Mhm.
I suggest you extract that raw data. I think they have it on hold right now because they had some sort of a data breach.
Oh gosh.
I know. Anyway, extract that data and then go to Dr. Rhonda Patrick's foundmyfitness.com because I'm going
Okay.
to tell you something that I found out that's just it's fascinating to talk about.
Okay.
So you can run a comprehensive report on Dr. Rhonda Patrick's website using your raw data from 23andMe, and she provides you with so much researched information on your genetics that you're not going to find through 23andMe, or you might find it on Self Decode. They're pretty good too,
Mhm.
but it's formatted differently. I like Dr. Rhonda Patrick because she provides really actionable steps for different SNPs. Remember, I mentioned
Mhm.
SNPs?
Right.
So my mom had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at 52.
You know, my mother had that same thing
What?
at 59. Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
she was,
God.
yeah. Mhm.
I didn't know that, Deanna.
That's so weird because I feel like we've got so much in common. So that is
Oh
so
my
wild.
gosh.
Yeah.
No, we've been connected for
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
probably, I think since I started my podcast, so 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
I did
crazy.
not know. I thought it was breast cancer.
Mm-mm. She was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
So my mom had that.
Mhm.
And then this is going to be really interesting to you then. I was starting to get cysts under my armpits. And
Oh.
like, okay, like this was scaring me because it was a
Mhm.
lot. Like, and they were painful and swollen
Oh.
lymph nodes. I don't know if they were cysts or lymph nodes.
Mhm.
Talked to my naturopath doctor about it. She said, do dry brushing. I do a
Mhm.
lot of detox through sauna. Nothing was working. And so I was getting a little worried because I felt like there was like something going on, like blockages or in
Mhm.
that area with the lymph nodes.
Mhm.
So I ran a report, a comprehensive report to with Dr. Rhonda Patrick's website and found out that I have a genetic SNP for blood cancers, like my mom. So
Wow.
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a blood cancer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. So I then started taking high doses of resveratrol. And it was on the advice of
Mm.
okay, I understand she doesn't give personal medical advice.
Mhm.
I was looking and I saw, oh, resveratrol. This
Mhm.
is very powerful. This could be very powerful for somebody who carries this particular genetic SNP for
Mhm.
blood cancers. And would you believe that those cysts went away and they never came back? The cysts, the blockages,
Wow.
the swollen lymph nodes, gone. It's been about 2 years and I've been taking resveratrol. So I started with a higher dose. I think it was maybe 500 milligrams. Don't quote me on that.
Mhm.
And now I take about 300, but I still take it every single day, every morning.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh,
So
wow.
resveratrol
Yeah.
is very powerful. And I do believe that you need to check, your genetics or check and see if it resonates with you.
Mhm. Okay. Um, okay, let's talk about this. Get your blood glucose in check. under
This is a big
control.
one. You know a lot about this too.
Yes, I do. I know. Yeah, but I'm not the scientific one. I'm like, I feel like when you explain things, it's a little bit different. And so I love that. So let's talk about that blood glucose because that can affect a lot of things.
Yeah, it really can. So in 2022, what I am going to say is the CGMs are great to see how high the highs are, how low the lows are.
Mhm,
They will not help diagnose you with prediabetes or diabetes.
mhm,
And what happens for women when we get close to menopause, and I was fine, my HbA1c. So HbA1c is very different because instead of looking at the highs and the lows or the fasting glucose, HbA1c will actually tell you how much how much glucose, sugar is
mhm,
stuck to your blood cells over a 3-month period of time. This is why
mhm,
it's so important because it's not looking at just this up and down and, oh,
mhm.
today I'm great, or tomorrow, oh,
Yeah.
today pizza,
Mhm.
so it's up a little bit. Like, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I personally feel CGMs are good for just looking at how high the highs are and how low
Right.
the lows are. But I feel that they were developed for a diabetic, not for people
Yes.
who are not.
Yeah.
They're not going to diagnose you. So if
Well,
you
and I think when I've worn them in the past too, I mean, you kind of can get carried away with them. It's
totally
kind of like they drive everything. So I don't like that.
right. And then the other factor, remember we talked about stress.
Mhm.
So it doesn't take into account that stress can dump glucose into your blood.
Exactly.
Even if
Exactly.
even if you're keto, for goodness sakes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So I always say to everybody, get your glucose, not just your glucose check, but your HbA1c. When you reach closer to menopause, your insulin receptor, sorry, your estrogen lowering can weaken insulin receptors, meaning
Mhm,
you can become insulin resistant, which is what happened to me as a nutritionist in
mhm.
October 2022. My HbA1c went up to 6.1, which is pre-diabetic.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I always had a normal HbA1c. So there were a few things going on
Mhm,
then, which is like I was close to menopause, my estrogen was dropping. Um, anyway, it is probably one of the most overlooked things. And
mhm,
if you don't act on it, it's much harder to reverse it if you can reverse it at all. So that's why I'm
mhm,
like, I nipped it in the bud, but it's not just about taking a supplement because during the time
mhm.
that actually in October 2022, I was intermittent fasting. I was taking berberine. And so this is
Wow. So you were
right.
doing all the things. Yeah.
And yet my HbA1c went up to 6.1.
So how
So
did you get it down?
So I went on my own program. I did my own program, Metabolic Balance.
Oh, that's
I
right. You told
lost,
me. Yeah.
yeah, I lost 4% total body fat. So this is
That's
why
awesome.
you can't just take a supplement. This is
Mhm,
why, even though this conversation is talking about
mhm,
supplements,
mhm.
people who think that if other things, and guess what else was low, Deanna? And I did
What?
not measure it in my blood. I did a hair tissue mineral analysis, and guess what
Mhm.
was low? Chromium.
Wow.
Chromium is one of the most important minerals for blood glucose balancing. So
Wow. I didn't know that.
if you look at Dr. James D. Nicolantino, he wrote a book called, and I don't know if I pronounced his name right. He wrote a book called The Mineral Fix.
Uh-huh.
He actually goes through different testing options and how important minerals. I think the best way to think about minerals is if they're like your foundation of your home,
Mhm,
all the vitamins that you're eating, all of the food, all of the nutrients, if your foundation has a crack,
mhm,
it's not going to be solid. You're not
mhm,
going to absorb those nutrients.
mhm,
So, and then there could be something
mhm,
dysfunctional. So I did a hair tissue mineral analysis,
mhm,
which, okay, we know that it's not 100% accurate. We know
mhm.
this, but it gives you some idea because this is made from the minerals in your body
Yeah.
and the vitamins and the nutrients. So are your
Mhm.
nails, except I do
Yeah.
put gel. I know it's bad. I know. Everything
Okay.
in balance, right?
Exactly, exactly.
But anyway, so low in chromium.
Wow.
I had, lower estrogens.
Mhm.
So the berberine, none of that worked. None of it.
Wow.
Even though I was working out with my trainer, I've
Mhm.
been working out with my trainer for 5.5 years now.
Mhm.
None of it mattered. So I lost the weight. You have to do the work.
Mm.
And it's not about just losing the pounds. I tell people throw those stupid scales away that just have numbers that are
I
pounds.
hate the scale. I hate the scale. Sandy, I got on the scale today because my granddaughter was standing there next to the scale and she was like, "Get on the scale, Dee Dee." I'm like, oh, and I don't want to show her how bad I hate that scale, but I got on the scale and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't go off what the scale says because my clothes are fitting just like they did last
Yeah.
year. And yet I weigh a little bit more than I did last year, but I think it's muscle."
Yes, but see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, um, I know women who will go on these fad diets, they will lose bone, they will lose muscle, and they'll lose weight. And then they gain all the
Mhm.
weight back. Muscle, if you lose it at menopause, it's going to be
Mhm.
so much harder to gain it
Oh,
back,
so much harder.
right? And
Yeah.
same with the
Yeah.
bone.
Yeah.
So that's why I lost the fat. The
Hmm.
only scale I do have a scale. I have two of them, Deanna, but they are body composition scales. I worry about
And which one do you have? Because I'm always looking at those. Which,
I have a Renpho, Renpho, and then I also have a Fit Track. I have two of them.
okay.
And they're
Okay.
both, and I sometimes like to look at two of them just to see what they
Hmm.
say in
Hmm.
terms of the body composition, if they're kind of aligned.
Yeah.
And what I care about is trends.
Hmm.
Trends,
Yeah.
not the number today, but am I seeing a trend in a bone loss? Am I seeing a trend in muscle loss? So
Hmm.
I went on that metabolic balance diet and I lost fat.
That's
That was
awesome.
key.
And
I
that's the key
added,
to lose the fat, not the muscle.
I added in two products that are very potent. And I can tell you what they are. They're orthomolecular for
Hmm.
for helping with blood sugar. So one is called diaxanol, which has all the minerals that I needed,
Hmm.
and one is called CM Core, which has berberine with some alpha lipoic acid. They're just very good,
Hmm.
powerful formulas. So I take those every morning, and then I am trying something newer. And my HbA1c was 6.1. It went down to 5.7, went down to 5.6. And in December, after using this, it's a glucose stabilizer.
Hmm.
And full disclosure, I am working with them.
Hmm.
But I love what they're doing because I'm now down to 5.5 in
That's
terms of my
awesome.
HbA. My goal is
Yeah.
5.2 because it's
Hmm.
really a good place to be.
Hmm.
But I'm actually probably going to try one of the CGMs while taking the glucose stabilizer now
Hmm.
because I've done the work.
Right.
And now what I need to do is I'm trying to level up. I want to get to that 5.2 if I can.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So let's talk about how you lost that fat. Tell us a little bit about your group and the what do you call it? The
Metabolic balance.
yeah, metabolic balance. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Do you
I
run groups all the time?
No, 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 I don't. I will work on occasion with a client if they're really serious because the cost of the program is not cheap.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. If you're going and buying a diet for 75 bucks, you're going to get what you pay for,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um, if you're going to go online and you're going to buy, let's say, Noom, you're
Hmm.
pretty much only going to address maybe the mental aspect, which I think is important for
Yes.
sure.
Right.
Metabolic balance is strictly a diet. It is a diet. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh, it's a eating well habit. No, it's a diet. Um, but what it does is it addresses and this is in my own words, not in theirs,
Uh-huh.
it addresses a broken metabolism.
Mm.
So they actually take blood work, they look at your enzymes, they look at all factors in your blood work, and kind of like that supplement company, they have their own algorithm to assess foods you need to eat for a healthy metabolism.
Mm. Okay.
So I went on the diet for, I'd say, a month and a half. I
Mhm.
lost the weight very quickly. And that's the other thing that people say, "Oh, well, you can't lose weight quickly." I'm like, "Well, I don't buy it because I've kept it off since I started November 1st, 2022, and we are in January, and I've kept every last bit of it off."
So that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, so you did lose it quick and you kept it off. How did you keep it off? You
With
didn't go back to the way you were eating.
no,
Yeah.
no. So the difference is I've maintained their principles. So
Mm.
I don't eat a diet, and I don't eat these exact portions because they give you portions, they give you what you should eat. It is a true diet.
So
Um,
it was something that you wouldn't want to do if you're traveling a lot, I'm guessing. Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
You'd have to. So, and there's also like almost like a washout period. There's 2 days where you take magnesium citrate for the first day and you poop, and you
Okay.
only
Oh.
eat one type of food for those 2 days.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and then you go into your program. The 2 days are a reset so that you don't have cravings.
Mm.
And then
Okay.
it works. It works. There, I don't know what you'd call it. Like the first 2 days are like a startup time. I don't
Yeah.
know. And then you go into your diet. And then you go into your diet for the first 2 weeks, believe it or not, you don't had add any oil. Nothing.
Wow.
So this is why
Mhm.
this diet's great for people because it helps with lipid signaling in the body.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you eat like full fat yogurt, I was eating full fat buffalo yogurt.
Wow.
But when I cooked my protein, I didn't add any oil. So it's just no added oil.
How does it not stick? Well, I know ground beef wouldn't stick, but if you did ground turkey, how does it not stick to the pan?
You are allowed to use a spray.
Oh, okay. I was
So
like,
I would use the Chosen Foods avocado oil
yeah,
spray.
that's what
I
I
would
use.
use a tiny
Yeah.
little bit of that.
Okay.
But really the whole point of that is 2 weeks you want to have the signaling,
Mhm.
fat signaling in your body to reset. So
Mhm.
then after I was done eating
Mhm.
that way, I still I don't the only fast I do is like 12 hours overnight, which I think is very
Mhm.
healthy for
Mhm.
everyone to
Mhm.
do.
Right.
And then I eat 3 meals a day, 5 hours apart, 2
Mhm.
bites of protein before every meal, and, if I want a dessert, I eat it right after the meal,
Mhm.
as opposed to waiting until my blood sugar goes up,
Yep.
goes down, and let's make it go up again. So, really, it's
Mhm.
all about how I eat. I don't eat past 8 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
and these are the basic rules. And I know that there's some glucose experts that say eat your veggies first. I
Mhm.
will argue that I will die on a hill to
Mhm.
say that that ain't the way, not the way for a
Mhm.
menopausal woman
Mhm.
who's having
Yeah.
issues like I have
So
been having.
protein first.
Yeah,
So give us an example of what you would eat in a day now.
sure. I actually this morning I had kefir in
Okay.
a bowl. I would put the kefir in a little glass bowl.
Mhm.
I add I add a touch of maple syrup, pure
Mhm.
maple syrup. Some people do well with raw honey. I
Mhm.
muscle test to see what my body wants, and
Mhm.
my body just does better with maple syrup. So I put a touch of
Mhm.
maple syrup in there. Then I add 2 Brazil nuts for selenium.
Mhm.
Then I add whatever mix of nuts I have.
Mhm.
I'll add that in there as well as seeds in the
Mhm.
kefir. And then there's like really liquidy kefir, or you could buy the kefir that's more like it has almost like I don't know, curds, or it's a little chunkier, more like
Mhm.
yogurt. There's two
Mhm.
different kinds. And then I will add in dark chocolate, or if there's fresh local berries, I'll add
Mhm.
that in for antioxidants. So that's my breakfast.
Mhm.
And, it's all protein and fats. That's all
Yeah.
it is. Then at lunch, it's whatever. Like sometimes it'll be a wrap with turkey or chicken. I usually
Mhm.
will buy those high fiber wraps.
Mhm.
So fiber is a great way to, that, just to help mitigate the effects of your blood sugar.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it's a salad. I've got a salad upstairs that I'm going to eat after I'm done recording with you, with a little bit of turkey.
Mhm.
Have one apple every single day, still for a year and a half,
Oh,
one
I love
apple
that.
every day after every meal. And it's interesting because apples have been shown to keep you fuller longer.
Mhm.
They are probably one of the most complete fruits because they'll give you the fiber, they'll give you the pectin,
Mhm.
they give you so much in that one little apple, and it
I
helps
love
keep you
that.
full longer. And
Mhm.
then so that'll be my lunch, and then for dinner, I'll have anything. Anything goes. Like it might be there's some higher fiber pastas, chickpea
Mhm.
pastas. Like I'll eat pasta.
Right. I love
I
those.
usually cook
Mhm.
dinner, like cook something.
Mhm.
So and then once I'm done, and it's so funny because sometimes my husband will be like, "You're not done eating yet," because I eat a lot. And
I
so
do too.
I don't portion control.
Mhm.
I just make sure that I eat what I want to eat within those 3 meals. That's
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
5 hours apart.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, Sandy, we've talked forever and I could
Mhm.
keep on talking with you
Yeah.
forever and ever. There's just so many things. So I definitely want to have you back on here because I think we need to then pick up on all your biohacking because you do biohack a lot. And so I do want to talk to you more about some of those things. But anyway, let's wrap it up today. But let's tell everybody where they can find you, and we will have all that in the show notes. And you've got codes and all that. So I'm going to have all of that in the show notes, y'all. But tell everybody where they can find you.
I am on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, you just name it. I'm probably there. Just look for Sandy K Nutrition wherever you do socials. And my website is sandyknutrition.ca. I'm probably most active on Instagram right now. And I do a lot in my stories, but that's where you can find me. And then I will have that little thyroid essential guide hopefully sooner than later.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. It's so needed too. So, well, thank you again, Sandy. I really appreciate having you today, and we'll have you back soon.
Thank you, Deanna. Love chatting.
Stop.